All right, welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're going to talk about someone you definitely think you know, Helen Keller. But as you're about to see, the real story is so much more complex and, frankly, way more radical than the one we all learned in school.
I mean, really, take a second. What's the picture that pops into your head? I'm willing to bet it's a very, very specific one.
Yeah, I'm guessing it's this moment, isn't it? The little girl, her teacher, that sudden splash of water, and boom, the light bulb of language goes on. It's a powerful moment, for sure. Totally iconic. But here's the thing. If that's the only image you have of her, you are missing pretty much the entire story. That moment wasn't the end. It wasn't even the main event. It was just the opening scene. So, let's dive into what happened next. First things first, we've got to move past that famous pump and really understand the incredible intellectual foundation she was building. Okay, so here's the timeline we all got in school, right? An illness at just 19 months old plunges her into total darkness and silence. For 5 years, she lives in what she later called a phantom state, completely isolated without language. Then, Anne Sullivan shows up, and about a month later, we get the famous breakthrough. But this is so important to understand. This wasn't some magic trick. It wasn't a miracle. It was the moment she got her hands on the single most powerful tool a human can have: language. That wasn't the destination. That was just the key getting put into the ignition. And wow, did she use that key. She immediately went on this unbelievable academic tear, from the Perkins School to Horace Mann for speech training, all the way to Radcliffe College. And in 1904, she graduated with honors. Now think about that for a second. She became the very first deafblind person ever to earn a Bachelor of Arts degree. And this is pretty much where the story we know just stops. But for Helen, this is where her real life's work actually began, as a full-blown radical scholar and activist. This one quote tells you everything about where her mind went next. She started digging into the causes of blindness, and what she found shocked her. It wasn't just random bad luck. It was directly linked to things like unsafe factories and deep poverty. Suddenly, her own disability wasn't just a personal, tragic event. She realized it was a political one. And once she saw that, she just exploded onto the political scene. She joined the Socialist Party. She was a member of the super radical IWW. She helped co-found the ACLU. She was a militant suffragette fighting for women's right to vote. She was a passionate anti-war pacifist and a vocal advocate for birth control. I mean, come on, this was not the quiet, saintly little girl from the storybook. Now, you can probably guess what happened next, right? Critics claimed she couldn't possibly have these complex thoughts on her own, that she was just being manipulated by her teachers. Her response was just perfect. She pointed out that her sources of information, books, articles, newspapers from all over the world, were exactly the same as theirs. The only difference was that hers were translated into Braille. She wasn't being manipulated, she was just incredibly well-read. So the big question is, how? How did she build this unbelievably complex world inside her head, all from a universe made of touch? Well, let's look at the mechanics. Okay, so one of her most mind-blowing tools was something called the Tadoma method. To hear someone speak, she would place her hand right on their face. Her thumb would be on their throat to feel the vibrations from the larynx, her first finger on the lips to feel their movement, a second finger on the nose for nasal sounds. It was this incredibly intricate system for turning speech into pure tactile data. So what was happening inside her head is something neurologists have a pretty cool name for: cross-modal plasticity. But really, all it means is that the brain is this amazing, incredible survival machine. When you lose one sense, the brain doesn't just let that part go dark. Nope. It rewires itself, recruiting that brain power for the senses you still have. And this is probably how it worked for her. The part of her brain that's supposed to be for seeing, the occipital cortex, it likely got repurposed for super high-resolution touch, which is how she mastered Braille. The part for hearing, probably remapped to process all those vibrations she felt on people's faces. And the amazing part? Her language centers, Broca's and Wernicke's areas, they were right there, just waiting to be used. But here's the part that just blows my mind. In 1928, scientists actually tested her sense of touch, and they found that it was totally 100% average. She didn't have magical, superhuman fingers. Her genius wasn't in the input, it was in her brain's spectacular ability to take all that raw data and build a world out of it.
Which brings us to the real mystery here, right? If this is the real Helen Keller, this intellectual powerhouse, this radical thinker, why do we only know the other one? Why did we turn her into this sanitized icon? I mean, just look at the difference. The myth gives us this miracle child, this saintly, inspirational figure. The reality? A lifelong intellectual, a radical socialist firebrand, a globe-trotting diplomat and civil rights advocate. One is passive and easy to admire. The other is active, challenging, and way more interesting. And a huge reason for this is popular culture. A play like The Miracle Worker, as powerful as it is, focuses only on her childhood. It ends the story right as her real, adult, intellectual life is just getting started. It basically hits pause on her life, freezing her as this child we can feel inspired by, instead of an adult we have to actually reckon with. And what an adult she was. Just look at this one number. 35. In just over a decade, she visited 35 countries as a global ambassador. She wasn't just shaking hands, she was meeting world leaders, advocating for the rights of the disabled, and literally changing policy across the entire planet. So it all leaves you with this one big question. Helen Keller's story is a perfect example of how we like our heroes to be simple, comfortable, and easy to digest. It makes you wonder, doesn't it? Why are we so quick to write the most challenging, the most radical, and honestly, the most human parts of our heroes' stories right out of history?